Okay, well, thanks very much, Elio. Well, probably you'll get to learn a lot about Microsoft Information Protection. And for those who already know a lot about the subject, I hope I can, well, entice you to look at some of the new things which were announced at Ignite this year, or even last year, to be exact. Yeah, first, before I start, of course, a very big thanks to all our sponsors, because without those sponsors and, of course, the organization behind this, the people behind this, we wouldn't be able to do these kinds of events. So a big thank you for them, both sponsors and organizing team. Thanks for having me as well. I'm always very happy to be able to present at events like this. The code of conduct, just to be sure, if you disagree with anything I say, that's certainly possible. Just drop me an email and let's keep it civilized. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. Okay, well, just a bit about me, myself. Albert Hoitingh. I'm from The Hague in the Netherlands. I live there with my girlfriend and my two sons of 13 and 16. So it's very busy here at home right now. I'm a solutions architect for Motion 10. I'm also a Microsoft MVP on enterprise mobility, which basically means I'm really interested in anything to do with collaboration, but also information protection, information governance, security in general, and much more. But for today, we're going to take a look at this, which is information protection. I want, as this is a intermediate session, I want to talk about where we are right now. Where did it come from? How did it get to be what it is today? And also what's been announced at Ignite. And I'll show you some of those aspects as well in a little demo. So let's start. First of all, let's take a little journey, if you will, going from AIP to MIP, unified labeling, because information protection, Microsoft information protection, sensitivity labels have been around for a couple of years right now. They started out as a combination of Azure Rights Management Service, which was around for even longer, which allowed you to really well set permissions, rights management, basically on digital assets like documents, and with the acquirement of secure islands, Microsoft combined those two to really make Azure Information Protection. Azure Information Protection depended or still depends on a client. And right now, if you are using Azure Information Protection and you have what we call the version 1.x version, then that's seen as the classic version. The classic version, which isn't the unified labeling or the sensitivity labeling one. And I'll show you in a demo what that might look like if you're still using that in SharePoint, for example. It did allow for well, protection of content either from Office or from the Windows Explorer and or Mac or the Mac Finder. And well, it can still be around today. But please note that it will be deprecated by the end of March next year. So you will need to be migrated to the new unified labeling if you want to continue using sensitivity labels. Well, having started out with Azure Information Protection, one of the first things Microsoft did was enhance the content which could be protected. So we got the on-premises scanner, for example, which is still around and which allows you to scan on-premises file repositories like network shares or SharePoint on-premises environments like SharePoint 2013, 2016, 2019. It allows a more broader look at your information because not everything is in the cloud. It also got an integration with Microsoft Cloud App Security, and that was needed because you could therefore protect your document, classify and protect your documents in cloud environments, which included Office 365. So you could scan, for example, SharePoint Online or OneDrive, but also included things like Box or Google Drive, for example. Also, one of the iterations this time was an Adobe integration. So you could really open up your PDFs even if they were protected by Azure Information Protection. Before that, you got a very, well, eerie looking PDF file which couldn't be opened in Adobe, and then you had to use the Azure Information Protection Viewer. So that was the second iteration. The third one basically was the sensitivity labels, and that's basically what we're using right now. So you got a new type of classification, a unified labeling approach, which basically means that the sensitivity of information can be accessed or assessed either in Azure Information Protection, but also Cloud App Security, data loss prevention, e-discovery. It's a unified approach to your sensitive information. It didn't mean that you got a unified client, because the sensitivity labels or the unified labeling approach uses a different type of client. That's called the unified labeling client, and that is the 2.x version. Those two are not interoperable, so if you want to migrate, you really need that new client. They also introduced, which was kind of weird, because they introduced the native client in Office for the Mac, iOS, and Android. As you'll notice in my demos in a couple of minutes, Microsoft finally released their integrated client for the Windows version of Office. But a couple of years ago, you could already use it in the Mac OS, for example. The labels which you can use for sensitivity are managed or were managed in the Security and Compliance Center. Right now in Microsoft 365, they are managed in the Compliance Center itself. And well, most of you probably know that, that we ended up with two types of labels. We got the retention label and we got the sensitivity label. That's still the case. And yeah, probably sometime in the future, Microsoft will address that. We also got a thing called Windows Information Protection, which basically enabled bring your own device scenarios, where we could say this kind of information is labeled, is classified. It cannot be moved from your private, from your enterprise environment to your private environment on a bring your own device, for example. At the end of this session, I will show you endpoint DLP, which looks, well, quite similar to this function. Okay, and where are we now? Well, last year at Ignite, a lot of things were announced, and well, to be very honest, we finally can look at some of those. We've got things like Office Online and Office integration. We've got site classifications and much more. A lot of those things I can show you, and well, let's start doing that. So, new functions. Most of these are general available right now. Some of them are either in preview. There's also a couple of things which are in private preview, which I won't show you right now, but there's a lot of things still coming, still in the pipeline. But there are a lot of things we can show you today. For example, first of all, the Office integration. As some of you might know, if you used the Azure Information Protection or Microsoft Information Protection client for information which was stored in SharePoint Online or OneDrive, for example, and you tried to open it, yeah, you got a problem because it could not be decrypted by SharePoint Online or Word Online, for example. Another problem was that because of the encrypted data, things like e-discovery or search did not work. Well, it took Microsoft some time, but now they have solved this, which means that we now have a Office Online integration for the sensitivity labels, which, well, is kind of cool. You get a sensitivity column as well. For those of you who looked like a couple of years ago within your columns in SharePoint Online, you might have noticed that column already, but it didn't do much. It didn't do anything actually. But right now we do have that column, and it does provide us with information on the sensitivity of the data. There are still some snags to this. For example, it only works for Office files. So if you want to use the integration that works for Office Online, but which kind of makes sense, but it doesn't work for things like any other files, PDF, they are working on it combined with Edge, by the way. So it's not entirely true that it's only Office, but there are still some snags. And another thing which might be, well, you need to know is that even though it is a column, the sensitivity in SharePoint Online, you cannot manage it as a column. So there's no things like default values. You can't edit the value from your SharePoint library. You really need to open the document to be able to modify that label. And the other thing, also kind of sad, if you will, co-authoring, as you see over there. Yeah, there's still a problem with that. And the problem is that while a document has been encrypted, so label with encryption, it will disable your co-authoring options. Just for the sake of demo, I'll just show it to you over here. The other things I will show you, but just because of the demo gods, I prepared a little video. And well, what we see over here, I have a document on the top side. I'm labeling it. It's going to be classified and protected, and I'm opening it on a different environment. And well, as you see, there's no editing button whatsoever. So let's remove the label, and let's see what happens at the other side. And because of the protection has been deleted right now or removed from the label, you'll see that I can co-author the document again. I should have muted that video, by the way. Sorry about that. This also works or doesn't work any way you look at it from Office apps themselves. So it's a little snag. The document, whilst protected and therefore encrypted, cannot be co-authored at the same time, which is, well, unfortunate to say the least. But let's take a look. First, before we delve into that, one other thing. As I've said, the online integration was added during Ignite, but now we also have the opportunity to set labels on a site and a group level. Some of you might say, yeah, that was possible a long time ago, and that's true. Although those were Azure AD attributes which you could set, but they didn't do anything to the site. The labels based on sensitivity labels right now really do have an impact on your site or your group. For example, they modify the privacy of the teams, for example, the external access and the device access for your site or your team's environment, all based on that label. Just to be very clear about that, and you really do need your components within Microsoft 365 for this. So it's not a thing you can use within Office 365 unless you have a Azure AD premium license. Why is that? Because this really depends on conditional access rules in Azure AD. Without those, this functionality will not work. So please be aware of that. Just creating a label and applying it to a site, for example, won't work if you don't have your Azure AD conditional access rule set for well, enforcing that rule. This functionality has been around for at least a year. What they did, I think a couple of weeks ago, was an announcement to really split the labels. If you created a sensitivity label before a couple of weeks ago, you would have the option to set your site and group settings as well. The problem was the label would become available for your groups and your teams and your SharePoint sites, but also become available for a user to select from Office, for example. Well, sometimes that might be helpful, sometimes that won't be helpful. So they now have the option to really split those and have the, well, set your scope for your label. So those are two great new enhancements. So let me just show you how that works in practice. So over here, now I'll just go to my demo virtual machine for this. Over here I have a SharePoint site very simple, no problem. What you see over here is my SharePoint library, and you already see that I have a sensitivity column set over here. So let's see if I'll just open up this document over here. And what you'll notice is that at the right-hand side of the document, there it is, it will provide me with a sensitivity button. And if I just select this, as you see over here, right now, it states it's highly confidential. Let me just set it to public. I don't have any restrictions for doing so. I could have, of course, but right now it's been set to public. And let me just see if when I go back to my document library, you see that the document indeed has been classified as public. So that's very, very simply how it's done. What you're seeing right now, by the way, the pop-up, the file has been manually labeled. That's because of the auto-labeling possibilities, which I'll go into in a couple of minutes. Over here, you see another one. You see AIP v1 protected document. So as you might remember, I just talked about the problems without the integration of SharePoint or Office Online. So let's just see how that works if I just open this one up. And some of you might, well, recognize this, this message. Sorry, Word can't open it because it's protected by IRM. Well, it's not entirely true. It's protected by RMS and, well, Azure Information Protection. So this is an example of why that integration, well, is very, very well welcomed. Let me just show you that exactly the same function within, for example, an Excel environment. So over here, I have my sensitivity label set. I set it to credit card information. Over here, I've got a label called Teams Confidential, and that's because that label was created specifically for my Teams environment, but I did not have the possibility to separate the labels. So I'll just show you in a couple of seconds how that works. Okay, this one as well, I just set it to public, and if I go to my general document library, here it is. So that's how that works. Like I said, there are some snags. So if I go to my information panel, I can have a retention label because, well, that's how retention labels work. But I don't have the option to really modify my sensitivity label. I do have the option to do things like just, oh, I wanted to group it. But let's just count it for then. Okay, so I do have some column functionality, but not that much. Okay, another thing which was added was the classification labels for Teams. Oh, I made a typo. So let me just show you how that works from an end user's perspective, and then I'll show you how that works from an admin's perspective. Here I have some Teams sites. Let me just say I just want to create or join a team. I'll create a team. Sorry about this. I'll just do it from the client, of course. I'll just say create a team. Which group do you want to use? Oh, that's not right. Sorry, something is going wrong right now. I should be able to select my, no. Okay, well, it doesn't go the way I planned, so I'll just show you the admin side of this first. And for that, we need to go to my labels. Over here, I have my sensitivity labels. And one of the things I'll show you here is how that works for the difference between documents and files and Teams, for example. So let me just say this is a demo collab days. Yep, and that's a description, of course. Very useful for my end users, of course, this. And over here, I already get the scope for the label. So let's say I don't want to use this for files and emails. I really want to use it for setting things on a team, for example. Then I'll just remove this one. I'll go to next. Well, these are the options for the files, so these are not relevant right now. And I'll just go next. And over here, I have my privacy and device access settings. So I can have, for example, those two. I want to, well, basically modify those. And over here, I can set my settings, for example. So let's say this is a very highly confidential label. I'll say, yeah, well, there's this team needs to be private, for example, and I won't let any people add users to this Teams environment. Over here, I have the device access setting. So let's say I don't, as this is a very confidential site, I really do not want any access from unmanaged devices, then I can block access. And this is basically all I need to do from Microsoft 365's perspective to set this, set this condition. Again, please be aware that you really do need your Azure AD conditional access policy for this option to work. So let me just finish this and let's create the label. So these were basically the two main things from this perspective, but there's a lot of things which were announced as well. So let's go. Another thing, data classification at rest. Like I said before, if you really wanted to classify your information, which was stored in, for example, OneDrive for Business or SharePoint Online, and you didn't want any user to be, well, harassed by that, then you really needed some options like Cloud App Security. Problem with Cloud App Security is, well, sort of like the problem is the license. It's a very expensive license, and it's not included in the more commonly used licenses for Microsoft 365. But right now, within again a subset of licenses, you get your data classification at rest functionality, which well, you don't need MCAS anymore for this, and it allows you to do classification of information at the background level based on sensitive information types. It will take some time to become active. I'll just show you in a demo one of the things which is running right now in my environment based on a simulation mode, and it does take some time. In my case, it took, for example, like a week before the simulation was finished and the system was finally well, up and running to become to get to protecting the information. It uses the DLP engine, and to be very fair, when the simulation has finished and the model is created, then the information is really well detected very fast. So very cool stuff. There is a restriction, by the way, so the system won't encrypt all your data when you activate this model. There is a fail-safe because, well, human error is still available, or is still there, of course, and you don't want your admins to encrypt all your terabyte on documents, for example. So this is one of the things I'll show you in a couple of minutes. Another one also, well, directly related to sensitive information are the trainable classifiers. This model uses machine intelligence to determine what kind of information you regard as sensitive. So even though we have, like, I think right now 200 built-in sensitive information types, it still might not be just, well, fitting for your organization. So now you can use a training model to really train the system to recognize your information. And then you can use the trainable classifier to either in data loss prevention policies or for information protection. When you start using this, there are some trainable classifiers which are available just out of the box. These are, for example, profanity or some very, well, clear classifiers which are, well, commonly used, but you can create your own and start using them right away. For those of you who already know or looked at things like SharePoint syntax, this is somewhat the same, but it's still different. But it's well, based on the same premise, if you will. So let's take a look at those for now. So information data classification at rest. It's one of the things you'll notice, by the way, just as a little sidestep, if you're going into information protection, information classification, records management, Microsoft still has the ability to really, well, throw all the options in one portal and just figure it out, if you will. You've got a lot of options, data classification, you've got information protection, information records management, information governance, and well, for now, for my data classification at rest, I really need to go to information protection. In information protection, well, some of you or most of you will probably recognize this. This is the place where you create your labels, where you create your label policies, and well, as you see over here, my credit card label, which I just used, is also available here. One of the nice things they added, by the way, to this overview is which content type this is available for. So as you see, my credit card information is only available for detecting files and email. I want to go to auto labeling because that's what I'm after, and what you'll see in a couple of minutes are the auto labeling policies I have. I have some which are still running in simulation mode, and I've got one which is already up and running itself. I'll just show you how you create one. It's well, very simple, basically. Just as people who know things like the DLP, the data loss prevention policies, or the auto classification label possibilities, this kind of looks the same. So let's say I want to go for privacy information. I want to go for the GDPR, which are these. I'll just click next, and just for the sake of demo, I'll just add a demo to the description, and now I can say, okay, which part do I want to auto classify? Microsoft still has some work to do on this, because I'll just show you. If I go to SharePoint sites, I want to add, for example, one SharePoint site, and I want to choose my site. I really have to type in my SharePoint site, or I can copy paste. Now, in my case, I do know. I don't have any very complicated sites, of course, so I'll just add this one. Would that be nice to just have a drop-down list or something? But then again, this is how it works. So I'm now adding my SharePoint site. The OneDrive, by the way, goes exactly the same. So I can choose accounts, but again, I need to add a URL for this. So this is something which needs to be tweaked, I think. I don't think that's very user-friendly, but this is how it works. Let's go to the next. Okay, I have some common rules. I'll just leave them at this. Being here in the Netherlands, I might have added the BSN as well, which is our identity, our server, our identity number. But I'll just leave it at that right now. I'll simply say, okay, I'm okay with this. I could have, changed the rules for this. I'll just show you, for example, and well, I just talked about BSN. Why not just do that as well? So let me say BSN. There it is. So I just want to add this one. This one is really, really weird in my case, because this does really remind me about the data loss prevention. I really, in my case, don't care if content is shared inside or outside. I just want it to be labeled by this label. So I'm just going to remove this one, and well, I'm happy with this. I've got the debit card, I've got the tax identification number, so I'm happy with this. Of course, I need to add it to this one as well, but because of the time, I'll just skip that one for now, and I'll just go to this one, and then I need to choose my label. And over here, I got my my sensitivity labels. in a couple of seconds. Yep. So this is one I used earlier. So highly confidential financial information. So let's add that one. And now, just to be safe, the system does not turn this policy on right away. You can leave it off, or you can run it in simulation mode. After the simulation mode, then you will be able to turn the policy on, but not just just add a policy and just keep it running indefinitely. So there. I thought I was cool with the demo name added to the description. Okay, let me just say I'm very lazy. Demo 2. Okay, let me just next. Fortunately, that is possible. So create policy. It's going to create a policy. I'll just show you one which is still running in simulation mode as well, and I'll just show you. Here in my demo environment over here. And I think it just told me the other one exists as well. So I'm not very, I'll just go over here. And what it will do, when a file has been found, it will label the document, and you will get the pop-up, this file has been automatically labeled. So that's a very cool addition. Any metadata, by the way, will be kept. So there won't be any like system, the classification system or something like that at the modified by field. The modification date won't be I'm not sure about that one, by the way, but the modified by won't be added. So yeah, this is very cool functionality. I'll just see if I have a environment which has a little bit more content for you to look at. Let me just go to this demo site. Let me go to my documents. And let me go to my all documents. This is manually labeled. Yeah, that's the demo guts for you. Let me get me, and there we finally got one. So over here I've got the highly confidential, because that's a document which contains credit card information, for example. So this is the way how you can use auto classification for your information protection. Okay, let's. I'll just. Compliance rules already. Okay, so just a point of learning for this. Please be aware of all the names and the policy names you use. I'll just skip the trainable classifiers for now, because I do have some other things I want to talk to you about. One of them is a data classification dashboard, which also gives you a lot of information already out of the box for your sensitive information. This was available even before Ignite, but they have included some really cool, nice stuff, like a content explorer, where to find your confidential information, sensitive information, and your activity explorer. The activity explorer also works in conjunction with endpoint protection, and I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. What is very nice, if you have well, of course, the required licenses for using this functionality, it also provides you with information even if you don't have your labels configured yet. It will use the built-in sensitive information types to really get you an overview of where is that information stored, how confidential is it, based on the base types which are included in Microsoft 365. So another thing which I'm going to show you is the endpoint data loss prevention. This isn't that much related to sensitive information types or sensitivity labels, but it is part of information protection from a Microsoft 365 perspective. Why? Well, because it's part of DLP, and what you'll see is that Microsoft is really amplifying the data loss prevention from Microsoft 365. going beyond Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, now to the endpoint. And there's also some private previews running right now, which include all other, well, some other content sources, which will be released private or public preview, I think, in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. This is a really cool functionality. It does use components from Microsoft 365 and Azure as well, things like Microsoft Defender ATP, because that's the agent which is going to scan any confidential information or sensitive information on your Windows 10 device. So let's take a look at those two. First of all, I'll just show you the data classification dashboards. For example, over here I have my data classification dashboards, and right now it's showing you the Activity Explorer. And well, as you can see over here, there's a lot of information. For those of you who work within Office 365, activities like shared externally or shared internally, well, those are still available, of course. But as you can see, there's a lot of information coming from the endpoints as well. Things like file printed or copied to a file share or network share. And endpoint DLP, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes, really works with that. So you can block those kinds of activities, for example. So this is the Activity Explorer. Yeah, this really uses things like log analytics at the background to really collect all that information and to present it to your admins in a very, well, I think a very user-friendly way, for example. Another thing is the Content Explorer, and the Content Explorer, like I said, uses the base sensitive information types for you to really search for specific sensitive information. That's the things you see over here already. If you have labels configured, you can also use those. So let's say the credit card information, I already used that one 2 times now. So let's see, if I click on this, you'll see like a Windows Explorer kind of interface. So probably there's 2 kinds of content in SharePoint which have that label assigned. So let's take a look, for example, and just wait and see. All right, that's my my environment. It's in this site. Okay, and if I go any deeper, well, there they are. And if I just open this one, you'll see here's the source view. So I even have the source view of the document, which includes credit card information. So that's correct. And even if I really want to dig any deeper, I can do so by going to the details, for example. And there you see all the metadata of the file, including the SharePoint metadata, also the sensitive information type, the match, the accuracy, which is only 55%, which isn't that high, by the way, and the label ID. So if you really want to take a look at your sensitive information, even if you don't have any labels yet, then you can even just use those in the baseline. Okay, well, endpoint DLP, that's the one I also want to show you something about, because that's also related to information protection. So for this, we go to data loss prevention, and we can create a policy. Because of the time, I won't be able to show you all the details. Just a heads up, for people using who know things like mobile application management in Intune, these kinds of settings are really these are recognizable. Things like which file paths need to be excluded, for example. Then the scanner won't scan those file paths. So I won't go into all those in detail. In my case, I just have them in the default settings, and I have a policy created to basically detect, again, credit card information. I'm kind of like a nerd on credit cards, by the way. I always use that one. So I have them over here, and let me just show you how that policy looks, and then I'll just show you how it works from a user's perspective. So just wait until the policy comes into the edit mode. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so over here, you'll see a lot of the more custom-based locations which you are used to from a data loss prevention perspective. And over here, you see the devices. And I selected devices. I also have a rule set on those devices. And if I go to the edit mode, you'll see these are the options which are right now configured in my policy. So copying to a network share is blocked. Copying to clipboard, which also includes copying from different applications, for example, is blocked. Uploading, well, audit only. And if I use audit only, then in my activity overview, I can really select what things are happening on my endpoints. So, all the other things are, basically the things we expect in a DLP policy. So we can have exceptions, we can have notifications, etc., etc. So let me just show you how that looks like. Let me just go to my, now I need to go, let me just, this one. I'll just go, first of all, to my Activity Explorer and just show you how that looks from a admin's perspective. So I already had this open, but yeah, there it is. So let's say I want to select here my endpoint devices, and you'll see in a couple of seconds, here they are. Here are all my actions which are based on my endpoint, for example. So file modified, copy to clipboard, those were all blocked. So how does that look from a user's perspective? Well, let me just show you. I have a, for example, I have a credit card, a Excel with a lot of credit card information over here. I simply have a blank Word document over here. Oh, I'll just try to get that a little bit. Yep, that's the way I want it. Just a little bit. Yep, smaller. Yep. So let's say I'll just take this carte blanche. I'll just say copy, and I'll just say, oh, not edit header. I'll just say paste. And what you'll see is, nope, that's being prevented by the data loss policy. I can dismiss it if there's an override. I can override it. In my case, I can't override it because this is really blocked by the DLP from Microsoft 365. I can say, okay, what kind of files were already blocked, and these two, like, well, as you might recognize, I've tried this before this demo, so these are the documents which were also blocked. There's a lot of other options like disallowing print or copying to a file share, and those do show the same interface. So that's endpoint DLP, also part of information protection, basically. In a nutshell, there's a lot of more information on that. There's more, and with this I'm going to wrap up. If you really want to know any more, then please try use the QR codes, because they will provide you with more information. You can use your sensitivity labels in a DLP policy in the time to come. Right now that's not possible. You can only use sensitivity labels or sensitive information types. Sorry, I misspoke. You can only use sensitive information types, keywords, regex, etc. In a time to come, you can use your sensitivity label. For the more enthusiastic people among us, we can use double key encryption, which is kind of complex, but combines the keys from Microsoft and your own keys, for example. Additional sensitive information types have been released specifically for the EU, so there's a lot of GDPR additional sensitivity types. There's going to be DLP for non-Microsoft cloud platforms. Well, you already saw that in my demo, I think. There's the option to do DLP for things like Box and Dropbox, for example. The Azure Information Protection Scanner is going to be enhanced by being able to discover vulnerable network locations, for example, locations which are shared with anyone or are publicly accessible, and that information will become available as well in the dashboard I showed you. And what's being shown right now in a little animation, that's the sensitive information document or information pane. And that really shows you why information is sensitive within Office. And then you can, well, either hide it, remove it, or, well, just try to relabel your document if you're allowed to. Okay, so having said that, wrapping it up, it's now 4 o'clock, so a lot of information. I hope, well, I did, well, at least for Elio, give you some view on information protection, where it's coming from and where it's going right now. If you have any more questions, well, I'll just be at the channel in Discord, so any questions we can answer there if I know the answer. Otherwise, I'll just try to look it up. Again, thanks to our sponsors for being able to provide us the opportunity to present this kind of information to you in the community. And with that, I want to thank you, and well, hope to see you in the Discord channel. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And yeah, nothing more to say. It was very interesting.
No.
I learned some things. So for me, it was totally new.
Okay.
Thank you. So there are some questions. As it's 4 o'clock, we need to start a round with our sponsors. So feel free to start discussing them there in our Discord channel. So yep. Thanks again, and see you all again in 15 minutes.
The Hoitingh framework is an enterprise-ready software platform that makes it possible to set up an easy integration between your existing back-office applications and push all the relevant information into digital workplaces. Hoitingh has developed various kinds of solutions which can be easily deployed and linked to your back-office applications. Hoitingh has solutions for contract management, HR to speed up onboarding and offboarding processes, sales dashboards, shop floor portals, and many more. If you want more information, visit our website.